Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm Rajdeep Pundir, and I'm going to be the presenter today. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ReWiser. First of all, thanks everyone for joining in on Saturday morning. And in today's webinar, we're going to talk about SAT, ACT, and the AP exams. So that's going to be our main focus area. And in terms of how we are going to proceed with this webinar, first of all, I'll have this presentation, which will run for about 35 minutes. And post that, we'll open the forum for Q&As. If in case you have any questions in between while I'm going through the presentation as well, feel free to put it up into the chat section, and we'll take up those questions towards the later end, right? And towards the end, anyways, you have the Q&A time that we have dedicatedly kept for it, right? So with that, let me move on and start with the presentation for today. Let's just quickly look at the topics that we are going to broadly cover through. So obviously, we will try and understand more about the standardized tests like SATs, ACTs, and AP exams. Who should write it? Why should you write it? When should you write it? Should you write it or not? Should you not write it? What is test blind? What is test optional? These are few terminologies which a lot of people are always confused about. So we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about the importance of SAT, ACT, and AP for the students who are from grade 9 to grade 12. Then we'll also talk about the timeline of these exams with regards to the application planning. We'll talk about the countries which are accepting these test scores. We'll also talk about one of the important thing, which is, so SAT starting March 2023 is undergoing a complete change. We'll also talk about the changes which are coming up. And then at the end, we'll talk about how ReWiser as a company can help you plan your prep, how we can be part of that journey. How does the timeline and the pedagogy of ReWiser looks like, right? So these are the topics that we are going to cover in today's webinar in the next half an hour period. So first of all, let's start with, let's just give a quick brief about the company. So we are a high school support company, which assists students worldwide with helping them achieve their high school academic goals. We largely cater to students from grade 9 to grade 12. We largely cater to two main verticals. The first one is test prep, where we help students with SATs, ACTs, Psat, and AP exams. Now, these are the exams which you guys are aware one has to write if they wish to pursue undergrad abroad. And even there are colleges in India which are accepting SAT scores, right? On the other hand, we also have academic tutoring verticals, wherein we do IGCSE, IB, AS, and A-level subject tutoring. And we cater to about 9 to 10 subjects over there as well. We have so far catered to about 3,500 odd students or families in the last 6 years. And in India, we've catered to almost about 10 plus cities, and across the globe, we've catered to more than 6 plus countries so far. That's who we are. Now, with that, let me quickly deep dive into today's topics, which is, let's say, to start with the SATs and the ACTs. Now, what are these exams, right? So these are standardized tests for undergrad applicants, which is needed by most of the four-year colleges. Right? So they basically helps determine the college preparedness level, whether how prepared the child is for the college level course. That is what they're trying to test you by looking at your SAT or the ACT scores. Now, what are they testing in these exams? If you actually look at both the exams, they predominantly have two main things. The first one is the English, wherein they largely cater to reading and the writing part. And the second one is the maths component. So these are the two things that they're testing. So English and math are the only two things that they're testing, irrespective of the course that you are planning to apply to, right? It's very different from US and from India. For example, in India, if you wish to do engineering, then you're maybe looking at writing JE. If you're looking at medicine, then you're looking at writing NEET. However, there, irrespective of whichever course you apply for, you are writing the same test, which is SAT or ACT, not both or ACT. And we'll try and understand what are these two tests there, right? Next thing is it's mandatory for most of the US colleges. And at the same time, it also helps in many other geographies. And we'll talk about what are those geographies where these exams help, right? So first of all, let's deep dive into the differences between SAT and ACT. And this is a super critical slide here. So these are two different exams which are conducted by two different organizations, first to understand, right? So which are competing for the same set of students writing the exam. SAT is conducted by an organization called College Board, and ACT is conducted by an organization called ACT.org. SAT happens 5 times a year as of today. which is in the month of March, May, August, October, and December. However, on the other side, ACT happens 7 times a year, which is in the month of Feb, April, June, July, September, October, December. SAT is a pen and paper test. So you have to book a center, you go to the center and you write the exam. Coincidentally, today is the SAT exam. So a lot of our students have gone and, they're writing the exam today. Unlike ACT is an online test. However, even for this exam, you still have to go to the center and write the exam at the center, right? But it's an online exam. SAT is a 3-hour long exam. ACT, on the other hand, is a 3-hour, 40-minute test. However, that 40-minute is an optional component. For the SAT, as I've said, it includes English and maths. But if you further deep dive into it, there are 4 main sections. The first section is reading section, which is largely a reading comprehension section, where you're reading the unseen passages and then answering the question related to it. The second section is going to be the writing section, which is basically testing your grammar rules, right? So you have a passage given. There are a few errors which are being underlined. So you have to rectify those errors. That's the second section. And in the writing section, you have a total of 35 minutes and you have a total of 44 questions to solve. And all of them are MCQ based questions, whether it's reading or writing, and there is no negative marking. The third section that you have is the maths without the calculator, wherein you have a total of 25 minutes and you have a total of 20 minutes to solve this, solve the 25 questions. For solving the 20 questions. And out of these 20 questions, you have 15 of them which are in MCQ based, and then the remaining 5 are in grid and response questions. Grid and response is nothing but where you have to fill in your answer. So let's say if you solve the question and you get the answer as 10 by let's say 19, then you will put that up, or 0.2, then you'll write that up, right? So you have to directly input your answer in the grid given. And then you have maths with calculator, which is the last section, wherein you have a total of 55 minutes and you have a total of 38 questions to solve. And out of these 38 questions, 30 of them would be MCQ and 8 of them would be grid and response question. That's how your SAT is planned. Now, on the contrary, if you look at the ACT, again, there are 4 sections, rather 5 sections, but one of them is an optional component. The first section is English section, which is similar to the writing section of the SAT, right? Where they're testing your grammar rules. And then they're trying to, you have to rectify the errors which are being identified there. The second, and again, it's an MCQ based. You have to find the right answer and you have to put it into the bubble sheet. The second section is the math section. And here you're allowed to use the calculator throughout the exam, throughout the math test, right? And you have a total of 60 questions and you have 60 minutes to solve those questions, right? So the reason I'm mentioning this time is if you look at it, ACT is very, very time intensive. The math section has 60 minutes and 60 questions. That means you have only about 1 minute per question to solve the ACT math section. However, if you look at SAT on the other hand, you had roughly about, you have roughly about, let's say, for example, if you look at with calculator, you have 55 minutes and you have 38 questions, right? So that's almost about 1.5 minutes per question. So that's the difference. SAT, you have more time to solve the question. ACT, you have less time to solve the question. However, if you look at ACT, the questions level is much simpler as opposed to what it is in SAT, right? Similarly, when you move to the third section, that's a reading section, which is a reading comprehension section. And again, you have these unseen passages. So you have to read the passages and answer the question. And then comes the fourth section, which is the science section. Now, this is one of the interesting sections because a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of students come to me and say, hey, you know what, I want to pursue major in economics, right? Do I still need to do ACT because there is a science section here, right? So my answer there is, it doesn't really matter whether you are going to pursue economics or computers or engineering or medicine. What you need to figure out is which test you are more comfortable with, whether it's SAT or ACT. The science section here is nothing but a reading comprehension section. You are reading the science-based passages and answering the question. So if you look at it, there is no science involved here. It's purely the reading section, right? So that's one of the confusion that a lot of parents have just by the look of this name, right? And then there's the last section, which is the essay component. And as I said, it's an optional component. It's not mandatory for you to write this essay component. Now, these are the differences between the two tests in terms of the sections, in terms of the speed, in terms of the complexity of questions, right? And now when you look at the scoring, SAT is out of 1600 points. So you get your score out of 1600. And this 1600 is further bifurcated into two, English and maths. For English, you have it out of 800. And for math, there is another 800. Now within English itself, reading is 400 and writing is 400. So that's a total of 800. And then maths is overall 800, right? That makes a total of 1600. On the other hand, if you look at ACT is out of 36 points. Now, how do you get this 36? So basically each of the section that you have, whether it's English, maths, reading, science, each of them is out of 36 points. And at the end, you find the average of the four, and that becomes your final score. That's how your ACT scoring works, right? Now, just to give you a concordance table, 1500 on a SAT is a 99th percentile. So that means you are in the top 1 percentile bracket. And equivalent to that is 34 out of 36 in ACT. So if you get a 34 out of 36, it's equivalent to getting a 1500 out of 1600 in SAT, and you are in the top 1 percentile bracket, right? That's how the score distribution table is. Now, should you write an SAT? Should you write an ACT? I think that's an important question that you need to figure out if you are, in grade 9 or grade 10. And I think we believe that the only right way to figure that out is by doing the diagnostic test. So I think the first step for every student would be to go and write a diagnostic test, one for SAT, one for ACT, see which one are you more comfortable with, right? Are you more comfortable with more time, but slightly difficult question, or you're more comfortable with less time, but you need easier question, right? Similarly, ACT, the level of English comprehension passages is slightly simpler as opposed to what you have in SAT. But then again, as I said, timing is a crunch there, right? So that is something that you need to figure out what works for you, right? That's a difference between the SAT and ACT. And for you, you have to individually figure out whether you are comfortable more with SAT or ACT. With regards to countries in US, whether you write an SAT or an ACT, both are equally acceptable. So there is no difference. The colleges don't differentiate between the SAT and ACT in US per se. However, if you look at SAT, there are colleges in India. There are almost about 40 plus universities in India which have started accepting Psat scores now. So obviously, SAT gets an edge because it's also acceptable at a couple of other countries like Singapore, like Canada, like India, right? So that's the only advantage here of somebody doing an SAT over the ACT. Now, you must have heard about another exam, which is called PSAT, which is also known as preliminary SAT. So the PSAT is nothing but a shortened and simplified version of the SAT, right? As I said, preliminary or a practice SAT is what we call it. You can take the PSAT only once a year, and it's generally administered by your school itself, right? If in case it's not happening in your school, you can write to the college board and figure out what are the other schools in your city, in your locality, which are conducting the SAT exam, right? So that way you can figure out where else PSAT is happening, right? And you can register for the PSAT. Now, should you write it? Should you not write the PSAT? That's another question, right? So why people write PSAT, first of all? One of the reasons why people write PSAT is when you write the PSAT, you get to know your understanding at this point of time, right? You get to know where do you stand among your peers across the globe right now, right? That's one advantage. The second reason why people write PSAT is, so some of the students are looking for summer schools in US, right? So some of the summer schools actually allow you to submit your PSAT scores in your application, and hence some people write the PSAT. However, on the other hand, there is another reason why some people write PSAT. So if you are a US citizen, right? If you are a US citizen, and if you write PSAT in grade 11, it's also known as NMSQT, which is National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, right? So if you're a grade 11 student, you should write PSAT because that can also help you fetch some scholarship, right? So that's another advantage why people write PSAT. But that's only applicable if you are in grade 11 and if you are a US citizen. These are the two conditions. Now, since we know PSAT, why you should write it, now, the next question is, how is it different from the SAT? Now, if you look at it, it's very, very similar. You have the same set of 4 sections, reading, writing, maths no calculator, maths calculator. You have different time and maybe different number of questions in each section. That's the only difference. So the level of questions would be slightly simpler, and also the time allotted per question might be slightly more, right? For example, if you look at reading in Psat, you have 47 questions, you have 65 minutes. On the SAT, you have 52 questions and you have 65 minutes, right? So you have more time to solve it. In the writing, you have 44 questions in 35 minutes for Psat. And for SAT, you have 44 questions in 35 minutes. So there's no change in the writing section. It's the same. Whereas if you look at maths no calculator and calculator, there is definitely a change. You have 17 questions in 25 minutes in Psat as opposed to 20 questions in 25 minutes. And similarly, in calculator, you have 31 in 45 minutes. In SAT, you have 38 in 55, right? So you have less number of questions and less time, right? Also, the scoring is different. For example, in SAT, it was out of 1600 points, wherein you had 800 for English and 800 for math as maximum. Whereas in Psat, the maximum score that you can get is 1520. The maximum that you can get in English is 760. And the maximum that you can get in math is 760 again, right? So that's how the scoring and the scaling is different for both Psat and SAT, right? With that, let me move on to the next thing. And this is an important topic, right? This is what I was talking about. What are the latest changes which are happening in SAT, right? Because I know there are students and the parents of students who are in grade 9 and grade 10th right now, and they might be in a dilemma about this SAT, right? And this is super critical information for them. So starting March 2023, right? So that means we are only left with 2 attempts now, because one is happening today, which is in the month of October and December. The SAT would be completely changed, right? And there are a few changes which are happening. The first change is the time would be reduced from 3 hours to 2 hours. It is going to be an online test and no longer an offline test. There will be only 2 sections instead of 4 sections. So they will have only, so first section, which is called module 1, will have 2 sections, which is English and maths. So reading and writing is now clubbed together in one single section, and math is another section. That's the difference. The students will have more time per question. So they plan to give more time per question. You already had extra time in SAT, but now they plan to give more time. The test will be online and will be taken on laptop. You still have to go to the center, but you can carry your laptop or tablet to do this test. The testing app would save students' progress while they are working. So let's say for some reason at the testing center, if there's a power cut or there's some issue happens, the testing app would stop there, and it will restart from the same point after the test is done, right? So that's what they talk about. You can use calculator throughout the math section. So if you remember, that was one of the difference between the SAT and AP. SAT and ACT. In ACT, you are allowed to use calculator in math section throughout. However, in SAT, there was one no calculator section. So now they have removed that, which means they're becoming more favorable to, let's say, IB student and IG student, because they're very, very used to of using the calculators. One of the important change that the test will be adaptive in nature, right? What do you mean by that? That basically means, so you will get the first section, everybody will get the first section same. However, based on your performance in the first section, the second section would be different for every student, right? So the set of questions. So if you've done well in the first section, your next section would be difficult. If you've done not so good in the first section, your second section would be slightly easier, right? So it's going to be section-wise adaptive test. That is the difference which is coming up now in the online format. Scores will be released sooner. That's always because it's an online test. So right now it takes about 10 to 12 days to release these SAT scores because it's an offline test. However, once the online thing comes into picture, probably the scores will be out in 2 to 3 days, like it happens for the ACT. So that's going to be an added advantage, right? And the reason why I'm discussing this and I'm emphasizing more on this is because if you're the child is grade 9th, especially grade 10th, right? Should you do it now? Should you finish it now? Or should you postpone it for the time and maybe do it next year once you have the new pattern, right? So I would say if you're in grade 10, maybe you can postpone it slightly and maybe only do with the next, with the new pattern. However, I think it becomes super duper critical for the grade 11 students and the parents of grade 11 who are there here right now, that they should finish off this exam by December. It's very, very important because you may not have enough time to do it at a later stage, and you wouldn't want to write the new attempt altogether, and you wouldn't want to be the first person to be writing the new latest paper, right? So I think that's one of the things. So for grade 11 students, start your prep and maybe try and see if you can finish it off by December. I think that becomes super critical at this point of time. Great. I think with that, let me move on to the next exam that we had, we wanted to talk about, which is nothing but the advanced placement exams. Sorry. So what is advanced placement exams, right? So AP, now consider it like this, right? So in India, we have a CBSE curriculum, we have ICSE curriculum, we have state board, we have IGCSE, we have IB, we have ASA level, right? Similarly, AP is a board in itself, right? AP is a curriculum, which is followed by a lot of schools in US. Now, they also allow students from India or from any other country to write the AP exam without even attending the classes, right? So it's more like you're registering as a private candidate. However, AP exam happens only once a year, which is in the month of May, right? So that's the only chance that you get to write the AP exam. So you prepare on your own and then you write it. These AP exams are considered to be college level course, first year college level course. Hence, they are obviously difficult, and hence it requires a lot of time and effort into it. But if they require that much time and effort, then why should we write it, right? I mean, what is the advantage? There has to be some advantage, right? So let's try and understand why should you write an AP exam, right? So there are various reasons why one can write it. Now, let me break it down into two aspects, right? So let's say if you are a student who is doing a CBSE or an ICSE, ISC or a state board, your board is not very well recognized by the US. I'm comparing it to international curriculum, right? In that case, it's always advantageous to write AP course so that it will help them to understand where do you stand as per the national benchmark, right? Or international benchmark. So to showcase that you have done a curriculum or a syllabus which is much more rigorous, it helps you to stand out in your college admissions. That's one of the reasons. Second, if you are, again, not doing international curriculum, you don't earn any college credits. I hope you are aware, how US admission or colleges work is, to graduate, let's say if I want to pursue computer science engineering, for computer science engineering, I need to get, let's say, certain number of credits. I need to get 100 credits, right? Now, for getting 100 credits, I might have to do X number of courses, right? So every course has certain number of credits, right? So I have to earn those credits in that 4-year period to graduate, right? Now, what happens if you write an AP exam? You actually earn credits while you are in India itself if you actually do well in these exams. For example, if you write an AP Calculus BC exam, AP, and you get a 515 there, you actually earn 8 credits while you are in India itself, right? Which is great because it helps you to save time. You can skip your college math course in first semester, second semester, and third semester, right? And straight away move on to the other subjects. So it helps you to skip the introductory classes. It helps to build the rigor. It also helps you to save money, right? Because over there you are paying for every credit that you're earning, right? So almost every credit is about $1,000, right? So every credit that you earn, you are actually saving some cost, right? So these are different advantages that or the reason why people should write AP exam. Now, somebody might question saying that, you spoke about CBSE, ICSE, state board, but what about international curriculum, right? So if I'm doing an international curriculum, should I not write AP? No, I think you can write AP, but there's a different reason for writing AP there, right? Because you are anyways getting the college credits for the courses that you're doing in school. So I think the reason there would be, let's say, for example, for some reason you have not done well in maths in your grade 9th and 10th, right? And now, you understand the importance of it. You want to showcase that you are not bad at that subject. You would write an AP, let's say, calculus, and you will showcase that you get a 5 on 5 and you show that, there was a reason why I couldn't do well in grade 10 because of whatever pandemic, the classes are happening online and I didn't do well. However, I'm still interested in math and I'm capable to do math at higher level, right? So that's how you can showcase your strength. That's one of the reasons. The other reason could be because of, some subject constraint, you are not able to do, let's say, you wanted to do 2 sciences or 3 sciences. You couldn't do 3 sciences, especially in IB, like you took 2 sciences. Now, the third science, if you want to do, you could probably take an AP for that third science, right? So you can show that you're still interested in the subject by doing another AP course, right? So there are various reasons why you can write AP depending on student to student, right? And that's where it becomes critical and it becomes a very, very one-on-one conversation with the parent and the student. And we are more than happy to have a chat individually with with each one of you to figure out what is the right fit for the child, right? Because every student is very, very different. So that's the reason why people write AP. Now, I've already spoken about it. So AP is out of on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least and 5 being the highest. If you get a 5 and 5, great. If you get a 4 and 5, that's also fine. But anything less than 4 and 5 is not really helpful because it will not help you fetch credits or any help in the college admissions per se. Rather, it might hamper your chances, right? With that, let me move on to the next important section, which is the testing timelines, right? Now, I think for that, let me try and help you understand how the college admissions work. Now, if you really look at it, right, college admission is a combination of 3-4 factors, especially let's say when you're looking at study abroad, right? One is your academics, which is your grade 9, 10th, 11th, and 12th scores. Second is your standardized test prep, which we are talking about today, right? SATs, APs, ACTs, all these exams. And the third part is your profile building, right? What is profile building? Profile building includes, your extracurricular activities, co-curricular activities, your leadership positions, your internships, your research paper, everything put together. All of that is your profile building, and that you probably would be doing so far, or if you're not done, you should be doing it. That will continue to happen. It's a continuous process that will continue to happen, which is the profile development part here, right? It'll start as early as grade 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you continue to do it. On top, as I said, there is standardized testing, and it's very, very important for you to understand what is the right timeline when you should be doing which exam, right? Because you also need to plug this in your busy schedule along with the school exam, right? Now, if you look at it, in grade 9, you can write the Psat. That's a great time to write the Psat to understand and get the feeler of this exam. In grade 10, you could also write the Psat, but at the same time, you should go ahead and write the SAT diagnostic test to figure out where do you stand. If you're at a decent level, then our suggestion would be you start your prep here itself. And by the end of grade 10, before your board exams or right after your board exam, depending on which curriculum you're in. For example, if you're doing IG and IB, where your exams are in May, you would actually do your SAT probably in the month of March, right? However, if you're a CBSE ICSE student whose board are in March, in that case, you could write the SAT, let's say in May, right after your grade 10. So depending on that, you should plan your SAT. If you're already in grade 11 and you have not started it, then you should start immediately for your SAT prep and write the SAT at the earliest possible. If you're a US citizen, you should also think about writing the Psat, which happens only once a year, which is predominantly in the month of October. So it's happening next month, right? So I think you'll have to look at that. And at the same time, you can start preparing for APs. Now, it's not necessarily that you start preparing for AP here. You can actually start here as well in grade 10th. However, I think the reason why it becomes a more one-on-one conversation with the parent, I have had parents and students who have done AP in grade 9th also, in grade 10th also, 11th and 12th is normal. Grade 9th, if you have to pick a set of AP, there are specific set of APs that you should be writing, right? Which are less subject heavy. For example, you could pick computer science, you could pick psychology, maybe world history, maybe microeconomics, maybe macroeconomics, depending on your interest level, depending on the course that you wish to pursue. That's the kind of AP that you can write when you're in grade 9, 10, 10, right? However, if the child is doing, let's say, add math in school, right? In that case, you can also think about writing calculus AP in grade 10, right? That's also a good option. If not, then you move to grade 11, and then there are certain set of APs. There's calculus AB, calculus BC, there's statistics, there's physics, mechanics, electricity, magnetism, chemistry, bio. Now, there are a lot of APs options which are available, and there are different ways in which you need to figure out which is the right set AP for you. And, we will get into this conversation. So, we have another webinar which is happening next month, I think around 17th of September, where we will deep dive into the APs only, because it's a very, very important part. And, this is the time to start preparing for the APs. So please come back and do join for that AP webinar as well, where we will deep dive into these APs, figure out which subjects you should pick, when should you pick, and things like that, right? But on the high level, this is how it happens. And then in grade 12th, the college application process start, right? Wherein you don't have any time to do anything else. You're just focusing on college applications. By college application, I mean shortlisting of colleges and then applying to those colleges, which is a super critical and super difficult process. and then writing all the essays, letter of recommendation, resumes, all of that happens, and then you apply to the college, right? So that happens when you're in grade 12, depending on whether you are applying early action, early decision, based on all of that, you will apply. And finally, you wait for the college to hear back from the colleges. Once you hear back from the colleges, then you decide which is the right fit college for you. While you're applying for all of this, you also apply for various scholarships like FAFSA, like CSS profile and things like that, right? So it's a holistic process that you have to go through, and hence a proper planning is required for someone to understand what this entire process is all about, right? And I'm more than happy to take you through that process one-on-one as well. Post the meeting, if in case you need a discussion, feel free to reach out to us over the numbers that we'll be sharing later, and we'll be happy to answer any questions there as well, right? So that's how the timeline looks like. Now, as I promised, I'll also be sharing the colleges in India which are accepting the SAT scores. So these are some of the more new age liberal art universities which have come up in India, which have started accepting these SAT scores. So Ashoka, Azim Premji, Flame, Kriya, Manav Rachna, Plaksha, Shivnada, Shrishti, SRM. These are a few of the universities which have started accepting SAT scores, right? And become super, super critical as a plan B also, if in case you want to look at it. At the same time, if you're an OCI card holder, if you're a non-Indian citizen, then colleges like BITS also accept SAT scores for their engineering courses, because they have a certain quota for those students as well under international curriculum. So I think that's something that you could also look at. So there are opportunities even when you're writing the SAT scores to get into Indian universities as well. Now with that, let me quickly move on to our pedagogy at ReWiser, how we help students, whether it's SAT, ACT, or AP. And for today, we have kept it very specific to SATs. We divide the entire prep into 4 structures. We call it phase 0, 1, 2, and 3. Phase 0, as I said, is diagnostic test. Write the diagnostic for SAT, write the diagnostic for ACT, compare the scores, figure out which is an ideal fit for you, right? And then start your prep. Then you move to phase 1. Phase 1 is largely about live online classes, which happens with the faculty, wherein that's roughly about 40 to 50 hours of live sessions, which happens with maths and English faculty, where you're doing reading, writing, and the maths concepts. After every session that you do, you also have assignments pertaining to each concept. At the end of it, you also have to go back, correct your assignments, and update your scores in the score tracker, which is a process that we use to follow up on the task that you're doing or not. Once that is done, we move to phase 2, which is largely about the sectional test. This is the point where prep become a lot more customized. We assign a dedicated mentor to every student. Now, this mentor will assign certain set of sectional tests to the student, which has to be done at a dedicated time. Every section test that they do, they sit back, analyze, figure out the mistake that they've done, and the mentor will suggest them what they need to do to improve this course in the next section. So a mentor will sit with individual student and figure out a customized study plan for every individual. Once that is done, we move to phase 3, which is largely about the full length test, where student will be doing at least about 10 to 15 full length tests, like in the exam simulated environment, to make sure that they get accustomed to doing these exams. This is the time where they're largely building the endurance testing. They've already learned the concept. They've gained the speed and accuracy in the sectional second phase. Now it's all about sitting for 3 hours and focusing for those 3 hours, which is also a challenging task for a lot of students. Every test that they write, they get a detailed report analysis saying what areas they've done well, what areas they need to improve. So all of that happens in phase 3. Yeah, so that's about the pedagogy. With regards to our modules, we offer different programs. There's a SAT full training wherein you do everything. There is SAT study plan where you can skip the phase 1. You don't have to do the class. You start only with phase 2 and phase 3. For phase 1, you get the pre-recorded videos, right, for the classes. You can go through that on your own, and then you only take phase 2, phase 3, the mentor support. We also have something called ST Lite, where you don't take any of those. You only take phase 3, which is mock test, 10 mock tests with the detailed report, feedback analysis for every test, right? That is something that you also get. And there are various other combination and permutation. As I said, it's a very, very customized thing. There's no one size fit for all. And then so you'll have to connect with us to have a discussion in detail with regards to what is required for that specific student. That would be my suggestion and recommendation at this point of time. With that, I would stop here and open the forum for Q&As. I already see a few questions in the chat section, so I can probably start taking those questions first. And then if in case you have more questions, feel free to keep putting it up on the chat section and I'll start taking it up from top to bottom. I can see somebody has raised hand, Mr. Rakesh. Yeah, Mr. Rakesh, please go ahead. Maybe I'll take your question first.
Sir, my daughter wants to study medicine at Oxford or Cambridge in UK. So
Okay.
will the Psat or this like
SAT.
AP exams help her?
No, sir, they won't. If you have to do medicine in UK, there's an exam called UCAT.
Okay, UCAT and BMAT.
Yes, those are the exam that you have to write, and not the SATs. APs are something that you can write to strengthen your profile, but not the
Exactly.
SAT. APs you can write to strengthen your profile for sure, right? But not the SATs or the ACT.
No, I'm not talking as a requirement. I'm just talking as a aptitude building or some
SAT
kind of
wouldn't
stuff.
help, sir. The SAT and the ACT wouldn't help. It's the AP which can help.
AP. Okay.
AP
sir.
exams, yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Okay, coming back to the question that I have here in the chat section. The first one I have from Nihar. Is it possible to prepare for ACT in 1 to 2 months? Really difficult, Nihar. I think what my suggestion to you would be go write a diagnostic test. And based on the diagnostic, see where you stand. And then accordingly, prep for the areas where you're weak in, right? So it has to be very, very specific, personalized, customized plan that you have to follow if you want to do well in 1 or 2 months. But it's difficult. Second question from Divya, will you please share the slide later? Will be helpful. And Divya, we won't be sharing the slides, but we'll be sharing the recording. We have recorded the entire webinar. So we'll be sharing the webinar recording with you guys. We have your email IDs. I hope that answers. Thanks. Next question is from Dipali. Yes, sure. Oh, sorry, Dipali has answered it. Another question from Sangeeta Khanna. When is this change beginning? I'm assuming you're talking about the SET starting from March 2023. That's when the change happens in India. In US or any other geography, in US, the change is happening from 2024. So we have the guinea pig, unfortunately, where this experiment will be run for 1 year and then they will decide. Next question is from Nidhi. When is the right grade to take APs? Great question, Nidhi. But for APs, you could start as early as grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, as I told you during my timeline presentation, right? You could, depending on an individual to individual, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where are you right now, based on that, we'll have to individually figure out and work with you. Dipali or Sharad, one of them will connect with you and help take some details from you. And based on that, figure out what should be the right AP for you, right? I hope that answers your question. There's another question from Tanushree Chaudhary. Is there any change in Is there any changes in ACT pattern or it will be same pattern? Tanuri, there is no change in the ACT. ACT only changed 2 years back where they moved from offline to online. So we don't expect any changes to happen right now. Another question from Sanya. How many AP tests must one take for an impressionable profile? Great question, Sanya. Okay. I think to answer that question, the reality is there is no answer to the, like nobody knows what is the answer to that question. However, there are two terms, AP Scholar and AP Honors, Scholar with Honors. So if you write 3 APs and if you get a 515 or a 415 in these APs, you become AP Scholar. So you get a certain certificate for it. If you actually write 4 APs and you get a 515 or 415 in most of them, you become AP Scholar with Honors, right? So you get another certificate for it, which you can obviously write it in an application saying that you are an AP Honors, right? So that becomes that obviously become you stand out of the crowd because of your AP profile then, right? So 4 APs is what I would recommend. In that case, you should target over 2-3 years, right? I'm not saying 1 year. I'm saying between 9, 10th, 11th. That's the number of APs that you need to write. Another question from Bala Murli. All the sessions are online or in person? All the sessions will be online, Mr. Bala. We are not operating in person. Everything is happening online. However, we have option to do group session. We have option to do one-on-one. You can decide what you want to do. Are you preparing for Psat? How much does it cost? This is Zoom user. Okay, sorry, we don't have the name. Okay, so the reality is, I personally don't believe that one should take prep or external support for Psat, because Psat is largely for you to figure out where you stand right now, right? So we don't directly prepare for Psat. Our objective is to prepare for SAT, right? While you are in that journey of SAT, you will get prepared for Psat automatically, but we don't specifically prepare you for Psat, because Psat is practice SAT, right? No college will look at your Psat scores, so don't worry about your scores in Psat. Another question from Mr. Bala Murli, idea about the fees for each phase. So there's no fees for phase wise. There's a standard fees for the entire program, right? And that depends on whether you're doing a group program, one-on-one program, right? And my colleagues can maybe get in touch with you and share the entire fee structure proposal with you, just for you to understand based on your requirement. But it's not phase wise; it's for the full program. Next question from
Do you have an office? Do you have an office in Mumbai?
No, Sangeeta,
or
we don't have
operating online.
We are purely operating online. We have yes. So we had like 4 offices across Bangalore pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, now we are purely operating online. So we are not even operating offline for Bangalore. So currently we have students in Bombay, Delhi, Surat. I mean, across the globe, but all online. Yeah.
And do you start training SAT preparation in 10th grade? Like suppose if a child doesn't want to give exam in 10th, since there's a board exams, and also if we start training since English is a bit tough, is that possible? Do you have that option?
Yes. So a lot of parents and a lot of students actually opt for it. And you're right. So in that case, what we do is we start with English first, because that takes a lot longer for somebody to get up to the speed. And later on, we add the math, right? So the program kind of gets stretched across almost for a year, let's say. So a lot of students actually opt for it.
The fee structure accordingly, like will you share that also?
Yes, Sangeeta, we can share that as well. Yeah, okay. Let me, I hope that answers the question, Sangeeta. Can I move to the next question?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Next, I have a question from Divya. Which exam to give for admission in UK for robotics undergrad course? So Divya, for UK, you don't have any other specific exam. The only exam that you write for UK is the UCAT or BMAT for the medicine, right? Like Mr. Monty has asked, right? Only for medicine you have to do it. Otherwise, you don't have any other exam that you have to write for the admissions in these colleges per se. They might conduct interviews and everything, but that's very college specific, right? So UK and US, the major difference is UK is very, very acad focused. Like they will give admission purely based on your academic profile. However, US will look at academics plus your other profile as well, right? That's a major difference. However, why people opt for US more than UK? One of the major reason is the flexibility, right? In UK, you sign up for a course and then you stick to that course, right? It's like India, right? You're not allowed to change, move from one course to another. However, if you look at US, even after first year, you can actually go undecided and then decide your major after first year, right? So that's a flexibility that you get. That's the advantage with the US or UK. And obviously the second is after Brexit, it's slightly in that dicey stage. So we don't know about, I mean, obviously the visa policies have improved and all, but the job market is a bit shaky right now. Another question from Bipasha, is there a limit to how many EP subjects we can choose? There is no limit at all, Bipasha, but I think one thing you have to be very, very careful is you need to figure it out that you cannot compromise on your academics while writing the APs, right? So make sure it's a fine balance, because AP courses are not easy. As I said, they are college level course. They're giving you credits for the college for skipping the course, right? So they're obviously difficult, right? So make sure you are not overburdening the child as well at the same time. Another question from Nihar. I'm actually in grade 12 right now, and I need to prepare for HT or ST in the next 2-3 months before college application. Is there any crash course I can do? Definitely, Nihar, you can do that. Dipali, please take note of Nihar's thing, and maybe Nihar, drop your phone number and email ID to Dipali on a personal chat, and she'll connect with you, right? Dipali, you can drop a personal message to Nihar maybe. Great. Next is Manisha. Can a student give SAT in 9th, 10th grade? For how long is it valid? A great question. I forgot to mention that. So SAT scores are valid for 5 years. So don't worry whether you're in 9th or 10th, you can definitely write it. The only idea is are you matured enough to do it at that point of time, especially with the reading part, right? Because reading the passages are not very straightforward, right? So you would want to make sure that the child has that, child is mature enough to understand that sort of passage and answer the question. But yes, you can write it. I have another question from Zoom user. I also need to know AP for grade 9 student who wants to pursue computer science. Do you start training for ST from grade 9th or 10th? Yeah, we do have students who have started in grade 9th and grade 10th as well for ST. Obviously, with grade 9th, we do a very different approach. With grade 10th, it's a slightly different approach that we follow. Can you do an AP in grade 9? You can definitely do an AP. What are the APs that you can write? As I said, it's very, very person specific question. We can take it separately as well. But for computer science, student can look at statistics. Student can look at, if you're in grade 9th, again, we'll have to try and understand if we can do AP computer science, depending on student level and where the child is. And we can have a one-on-one conversation on that. We also need to figure out if the child can do psychology or microeconomics, macroeconomics. Like, we'll have to sit with the child and figure out where they are, what sort of subjects they have taken, where they are in terms of academics, and then take that call. I hope that answers the question, Zoom. Sorry, I don't have the name there. If not, feel free to connect back with us. Happy to answer those questions as well. Next is, we are looking for group 4 to 5 students. I'm representing a school. This is Mr. Bala Murli. Okay, great, Mr. Bala Murli. So what I can do is, Dipali, can you take Mr. Bala Murli's phone number and email ID? We can have a discussion with sir and
Sure.
figure out. So currently, we are actually working with a couple of international schools across Bangalore and outside Bangalore as well. So, we can definitely help your school with the SET, ST requirement or AP requirements as well, Mr. Bala Murli.
Sure.
Yeah, I send the phone number and email. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. Bala Murli.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Next, I have a message from Divya Srivastav. Does IBDP certification has any advantage in securing admission UK, US, Canadian universities? Great question. So Divya, it's a very, again, it's like that question, does AP help in the admission or not, right? So nobody knows it. However, it generally says that IBDP has an advantage because they're more recognized in these universities, right? I think that's the advantage that you have. Sorry, I think, can everyone be in mute? Dipali, can you go on mute? Yeah. So, Divya, sorry, coming back to the answer to your question, if there is a possibility, I would prefer to do an international curriculum for various reasons. One is, if you do an IB, you are better prepared for the college, because IB is a open-ended curriculum. It's not like a CBSE where there's a prescribed book and you do it. It's an open-ended where there's a curriculum defined, but the book is not defined. So you get into a lot of research, right? The CAS activity, the IAs, the EAs. So you get into writing. A lot of writing is required. You get into a lot of research is required, right? And all of that is required in college as well. Independent study, right? Less hand-holding or spoon-feeding, right? So that helps. So that transition from IBDP to the college is always easier. However, IBDP as standalone, if you're doing it in grade 11th, might be daunting as well, especially subjects like English, languages, are really, really difficult in IBDP as opposed to CBSE and ICSE. So again, I think it's a very, very important question. I think it's a very, very tricky one to kind of also answer in terms of whether you should switch or not. I think, again, based on individual discussion, personal discussion, depending on which grade the child is, right move, not right move, I think all of that has to be decided. And the question from Mr. Krishna, I joined a bit late, would like to have a 30-minute appointment. Sure, Mr. Krishna, we'll do that. At the same time, first, I think we will share the recording for this webinar. Maybe you can go through this recording since you've joined late. And then after that, if there are questions, we are more than happy to answer those questions, right? Yeah, I think you can, Dipali, can you share Sharat's appointment link and your phone number and Sharat's phone number in the chat section as well? Anybody who needs any question or anything, we are sharing another numbers as well,
Sure.
which you can reach out to. Thanks.
Sure.
Then I have another question from Dr. Sunil. What is the main difference between graduation in India versus abroad, UK, US, etc., engineering branches? The quality of education is different, Mr. Sunil, right? I mean, the amount of research that goes in US or UK is very, very different as opposed to what goes in India. That's one. B, international exposure always helps because you are staying in a diversity. So you're meeting people from different countries, you learn different culture and you become better citizens, right? That's second. Third, the major thing is, in India, what happens, you have those IITs and BITS, and then there is nothing, right? So there's a huge gap between the tier 1 college, which are like 10, 15 colleges, let's say. And then after that, the next ranked colleges are very, very low colleges, right? There's a huge difference between the two quality wise, right? Whereas in US or UK, whether you're in top 10 college or 15th college, 20th college, the gap is very, very small, right? So that's the difference, right? So if you can get into the top colleges in India, great. You do that and then go for masters. However, if you think you may not, it's better to go to a tier 2 college in US or UK. Obviously, I'm assuming you can afford it, right? That's also one of the major factor, right? If you can afford it, then you should go for US and UK and get into tier 2 college, because even the quality of education would be far better there as opposed to what you would get here in India in the tier 2 college, right? I hope that answers your question, Dr. Sunil. And this is a more debatable and a longer discussion. I mean, it's a webinar topic in itself. But I hope I have answered your questions. Okay, I have another question from Sangeeta. How many students are there for SAT training? So there is nothing like a minimum. So we have a maximum batch size. So we take about 10 students per batch. That's a maximum per batch. We start as early as with 3 to 4 students as well. So we have rolling admissions that happens. Next is iPhone user. How do you start preparing for SAT on your own? Okay, I mean, if you want to start preparing on your own, great resources, Khan Academy. Go to Khan Academy. There are free resources available. Pick content from there. There are videos. There are question papers. Go there and start preparing on your own. That's a good resource that you can use for free. Another question from Neha. Since SAT and ACT scores are no longer considered for college admission in USA, what importance do they have? Okay, that's a myth, Neha, right? That's a big myth. And thanks, you brought up that topic, right? So, what has happened? You always hear two terms very often, right? It's called test optional and test blind, right? So what is test optional and what is test blind? So there are a few universities which are test blind, like University of California. All universities in California, right, are test blind. They will not look at a SAT score even if you submit it, right? But the second term, which is test optional, is a term wherein if in case you have done the score, please submit it. If you have not done it, you can skip it, right? The data says if for the test option colleges, if you have submitted your STSC scores, you have a better chances of getting admission and scholarship as opposed to the students who have not submitted it. And this is what the data says in the last 2-3 years, especially during the pandemic. So why this thing became more prominent about optional and people started thinking you no longer need SAT for US admission, because during the pandemic, they said it's optional because they were not sure whether SAT will get conducted or not in different countries, right? So they wanted to give fair chances to everybody. And hence this entire thing of, test optional came into picture. So Neha, please don't go by that assumption that SAT scores are no longer required for college admission in US. The other question that I have is, which is better if child wants to pursue medicine? Do you guide in profile building as well? What is better if child wants to pursue? This is from PT. Thanks, PT. Thanks for that question. Yes, I do guide for profile building as well. Dipali can probably share my number with you and I can have a discussion with you about the profile building aspect. But medicine, it's very, very critical because remember, medicine is a longer journey in US. You're looking at about 8 to 9 years. So because there is no direct medicine in US, right? You have to first do a pre-med, and after pre-med, you get into the medicine, right? So that is the difference. Unlike India, where you choose medicine from day one. UK also is similar to US, like India, where you decide to do the medicine, you write UCAT or BMAT and then get into the medicine, right? So it is very, very different and it's a very, very long journey. So you have to be well prepared for it. Another question from Sangeeta, does AS and A-level preferred by US universities in yes, Sangeeta, I mean, AS and A-level again is widely recognized, well known, so it's equally acceptable. No problem over there at all. Great. Next, I have a question from Dipali Jain. Does the child start preparing for ST and JEE or NEET from class 9? That varies, Dipali, right? I mean, that varies from child to child, what do you want to do, what the child want to pursue. SAT, JEE, NEET, different direction altogether, right? I would say first you should sit and figure out the direction, right? That becomes super critical, and then probably put in effort in that direction, right? Rather than trying to do everything, the child might be under immense pressure and may not be able to do well at any place, right? So I wouldn't recommend that. Another question: how do you start preparing for ST on your own in 11th without paying a lot? I thought I answered this question, iPhone user. The answer to that question is the same, right? Go to Khan Academy and you can do it there. It's a free thing. You will not have to pay any money there. So you can register there and you can practice test. You can look at the videos. Everything can happen there directly. Right. So I hope that answers the questions. Okay, I got another question. Is it better to prepare for ST, ST or AP for a better college profile? Yeah, I don't think it's an apple to apple comparison. ST, ST is different and AP is different, right? So ST, ST is more like a sort of a regular requirement, sort of a must do thing. AP is good to do thing, right? And also, if I've understood correctly, you're in grade 12. So I don't think you'll be able to write APs. Like you can write AP at the end of grade 12, but that will only be for credits. It will not help you in the college profile, right? Because now you have lost time. You should have done last year, right? So for you, I think right now it will be important to do the SAT, ST if you can, if there is any time, right? And I can have a another person one-on-one discussion with you separately to help you understand, because you're already pretty late, right? So we need to figure out if you're in grade 12 because the application process has already started, right? So maybe I can connect with you. Dipali can share my number with you, and based on that we can figure out and talk about it, what you can do and what are the options available. I got another question from Shweta. My son is in class 11 now. He can give only one AP attempt. Will it be difficult for him to seek admission abroad? What is the difficulty level? Not at all, Shweta, right? I mean, AP is it's more about, your recipe is ready. Now you're putting the cherry on the top, right? So AP is more like cherry on the top, right? So the more you do, the better it is, right? So it will not stop you from getting admission abroad, right? But it will increase your chances of getting admission into a slightly better university. Like to give you an example, without APs, if you're getting to a 40th rank university, maybe with SAPs, you might get to a 35th rank university. Just a hypothetical thing, right? It may not even happen, but I'm just giving a hypothetical situation, right? So it only helps. It's more, it acts like a catalyst, right? In terms of the admission, it only helps to increase your chances of acceptance, right? So that's how it sort of helps. And yes, APs are difficult. They are equally difficult. They are like your grade 11th, any particular subject, right? So they are that difficult, right? So, and hence it's important to pick the right set of APs at the right point of time. And again, Shweta, we can have if the child is in grade 11, I think now is the time to start preparing for APs because the child has to write it in May. We can have the discussion one-on-one and try and figure out with you. Feel free to connect with us over the numbers. And, we can have the discussion and help you figure out what could be the right step for the child now. Thanks, Shweta. Any other question? I see these are all the questions that I've received so far. I think I've answered everything. If I've missed out something, can somebody please point it out? Probably put it up again. I'm happy to answer it. Okay, while people are thinking about it, I would like to thank each and every one. I hope the webinar was useful. I hope you have gained something in this last 1 hour of your time on a Saturday morning. We keep doing these webinars every month. So if you wish to attend any of these webinars, if you think anybody in your network would have any benefit from these webinars, feel free to let them attend. We allow so you can also write the free diagnostic test. So, after this call, by end of the day today, you will get a mail from our side, which will have a link for free diagnostic test. You guys can write the free diagnostic test at your own leisure if the child wants to do it. There's no cost associated to it. You'll also get the link, the recording from the session, if in case you want to go back and hear it out again, any particular part. And then you anyways have a number. So if in case you feel that there is anything that you want to discuss personally one-on-one, especially for grade 11 parents, grade 12th students, parents, you're there, because there is less time, you should act as quickly as possible. Feel free to reach out to us personally one-on-one, and we are more than happy to answer any questions.
Hello, Mr. Rajdeep.
Hi, sorry. Just
Sorry
one
to
second. Let me
interrupt
see
you.
who it is.
There was just one last question.
Yeah, Divya.
Just came to my mind, and I thought you might go offline, so I'm asking. In a year, how many set attempts can you give, or throughout your school?
Unlimited. There's no restriction. However, we suggest that you should not write it more than twice.
Okay, twice in a
That's
year.
our recommendation. However, you can write it as many times as you want.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Great. I think there are no other questions. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for attending this webinar. I had pleasure talking to you guys, and I think we had wonderful discussions, especially at the end in the Q&As, and I think we've had good questions as well. Thanks everyone. Have a lovely weekend. Thanks for joining in. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe.